Associated Press is leading a investigation and has revealed that the U.S. military is botching its online fight against Daesh. The multi-million initiative, also known as WebOps, was launched to combat extremist propaganda and hinder their recruitment efforts. It is a part of vast psychological operation that the Pentagon says is effectively countering the enemy. However, several current and former WebOps employees told AP that the critical national security program is far from perfect. Speaking on condition of anonymity, the sources cited numerous examples of civilian Arabic specialists with little experience in counter-propaganda. Some of them cannot even speak Arabic fluently and have so little understanding of Islam that they are simply no match for Daesh online recruiters. Furthermore, 4 workers told media outlet that they had personally witnessed WebOps data being manipulated. Yet the companies carrying out the program for the Pentagon's Central Command have dodged attempts to conduct an independent assessment of the presented data. AP tried to reach Central Command spokesman Andy Stevens, but he declined to comment. And now to discuss this in further depth, we are joined live by Assistant Professor of Politics and Intelligence and National Security Studies program at Coastal Carolina University, Dr. Joseph Fitsanakis. Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you on the line, sir.
Thanks for having me. Doctor,
can you answer me this one question that I have just floating around in my head? Why would the Pentagon establish a completely separate multi-million initiative to counter Daesh propaganda when initially the recruiters from Daesh have essentially a very, very easy playing field because they can always say, well, you know what, the U.S. drones have bombed so many different locations and do you guys want to fight the Americans? Easy. Done. Where do I sign? It's so easy to do that. Why would the Pentagon, instead of maybe limiting drone attacks, establish that?
Well, look, I mean, we shouldn't see the Pentagon as a sort of monolithic organization. There are people at the Pentagon who want to fight this war in a very sort of traditional, old-fashioned way, using bombs and planes and so on and so forth. There are others in the Pentagon who understand that the main focus of this conflict, the main front, as it were, is the war for hearts and minds. And I think what you're referring to as WebOps is the latter people who realize that this is more of a psychological war than an actual physical war.
Mm-hmm. So what about any concrete examples of what exactly WebOps program is? Because for me right now, it seems kind of ambiguous a little bit. Can you give us more details?
Sure. I mean, you referred to it earlier as a psychological operation,
mm-hmm.
which is indeed what it is, otherwise known as a special operation. I mean, this type of activity goes back to the ancient Greeks, if not before. Essentially, it's an attempt to counter a major weapon that ISIS uses to recruit individuals, not just in the Middle East, but also in the West, which is, of course, the Internet, essentially the power of social media. The U.S. has realized now for a number of years that ISIS is exceptionally good at using online media to recruit. And it's not, by the way, because they're so savvy when it comes to online things. It's mainly because they're young. That's what young people do. They go to social media. And that makes them very efficient in spreading their message online. So what you have in this program is American civilian, primarily analysts, who are also trained to read and write in Arabic. And every day they use fabricated online profiles and they browse social media, platforms like Facebook and Twitter, and they look for pro-ISIS activity to counter.
I see. So they pretend to be of Arabic descent, and then they try to somehow do they write angry comments under ISIS posts or something? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that they also troll just a bit. They try to introduce an element of disillusionment and sort of dissent to the primary ISIS message. You know, that's, I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's really what it comes down to, essentially.
How are you familiar with AP's investigation of WebOps? Do you find these conclusions realistic? What do you think?
Yes, I am familiar with it, and I'm afraid I do. I do find the results of the investigation quite realistic. I mean, the fact is the progress in this front has been very minimal in the last few years. There's no question that ISIS is predominating in this war. The only people that have come close to actually fighting ISIS with equal prospects for victory online is the group Anonymous, which is also staffed by young teenagers, essentially, who have the same understanding of social media. The AP research mentions amateurism, mismanagement, manipulation of data as well. All of that sounds, unfortunately, realistic. I mean, I have my own experience with this kind of stuff. An agency that should remain anonymous once exposed some of us at a conference. And a video they produced to try kind of a youthful, hip type of video program they produced to convince young Muslims that Islam is a religion of peace. A very interesting idea, and of course one that I support. But the way the presenter was sitting in that video and the way the camera was positioned, the viewer was exposed to the sole of the shoe of the presenter, which in Muslim cultures, especially in the Arab world, is considered extremely impolite and sort of detracted from the message of the video. And when I pointed this out, myself and others who are familiar with Muslim culture, to the producers, they kind of looked at us bewildered. They had no idea. So they lack often basic cultural knowledge of Arabic language, a history of the region, and of course all kinds of religious practices and beliefs that makes their efforts actually very difficult to succeed.
Is it a systemic error, maybe from staffing, arrangements where the staff has not been chosen properly, or is it more of a bigger problem, whereas the entire group does not exactly know what its necessary function is? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of various factors. I mean, this is a cultural problem that goes back to the Cold War. The United States has not been very good at adapting or understanding foreign cultures, and that sort of permeates military culture as well. The problem has become worse in the last 20 years or so, since the increasing privatization of the U.S. military and intelligence sectors. I mean, so we have now several contractors. I will remind you that this program that you're referring to as WebOps is actually contracted. The military is in charge of it, but those who actually are implementing it are private contractors. You know, it began under the administration of Bill Clinton, sort of introduce the private sector into some peripheral aspects of state governance. And so they began to hire things like cooks and cleaners in government agencies. But now it's come to the point where entire sections of the intelligence and security establishments in America are privatized. And this is an issue because private companies, I mean, their main concern is private profit. And that poses a huge contradiction between the mission of the intelligence community and the military and the privatized industry. And the results, I think, we see them in things like what the Associated Press has just revealed.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely smells like conflict of interest. It doesn't even smell, it reeks of conflict of interest right there. But if, in your view, how likely is it that the current U.S. administration will perhaps maybe initiate a probe, some sort of an investigation into the matter? Or do you think Donald Trump is too busy signing other executive orders like firing other people?
Well, it's too early to say for sure, though early indications show that the Trump administration has a very old-fashioned understanding of how to fight this conflict. I mean, I don't think he focuses much on the complexities of the effort to win hearts and minds. I mean, in the effort to win hearts and minds, assistance from Middle Eastern and other predominantly Islamic societies is essential. There are millions of people in the Muslim world who are as opposed to Islamic radicalism as people in the West, or for that matter, in Russia. And in order to win in this conflict, you have to have them on your side. So things like, for example, the recent travel ban, which was imposed by the Trump administration, alienates those societies that we need to have on our side in order to predominate in this war. It turns them from crucial allies to enemies, potential enemies in this conflict. And it did from American efforts to prevail.
Doctor, I'd love to say thank you so much. We're definitely going to have you back on the show to discuss this and other topics in further depth. Thank you so much. Joining Radio Sputnik Live was Assistant Professor of Politics and Intelligence and National Security Studies Program at Coastal Carolina University, Dr. Joseph Fitsanakis.